Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the most intense and unexpected stories about relationships, family, and personal growth. Today, we have a tale that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Imagine waiting for long years for your girlfriend to return from studying abroad, only to have your world turned upside down in the most shocking way possible. This is the story of trust, betrayal, and the quest for truth. Join me as we dive into this gripping story titled, I Caught My Girlfriend Cheating with Her Friend's Husband and Then She Dumped Me. The chill of December didn't stand a chance against the warmth buzzing through me as I waited at the airport on December 15th, 2023. For years felt like a lifetime, but today, she was coming home. My girlfriend, the one who jetted off to study abroad, leaving a gaping hole in my daily life, was finally returning, even if just for the holidays. I couldn't help but bounce on my heels, a goofy grin plastered on my face, ignoring the curious glances from other bystanders. When she finally emerged, slightly tipsy from the flight's indulgences, our eyes locked, and it was like we were the only two people in the world. The drive home was surreal. She was here, in my car, her laughter filling the space between us, cutting through the years of distance. She queued up a playlist of our songs, and somewhere between the airport and our apartment, in a moment charged with reunion's raw energy, we reconnected in a way we hadn't in years. It was spontaneous, a bit reckless, but it felt like reclaiming a part of us lost in time. Walking into our apartment, I caught her glancing at her phone more often than I remembered. There was a slight shift, a sort of secrecy in the way she'd angled the screen away from me. But hey, after years of long distance, trust was our foundation. I shrugged it off, attributing it to her needing to catch up on messages from friends or perhaps jet-lagged making her crave some personal space. The next day, we ventured out for brunch at our favorite spot, the one where we had our first date. It felt normal, comfortable, and right. We talked, laughed, and shared glances that said, I've missed this. The physical connection was undeniable, a reminder of the chemistry that had first drawn us together. It felt like we were picking up right where we left off. No distance or time could dampen what we had. Yet, as days passed, her phone became a constant companion during our moments together. Movie nights ended with her on one end of the couch, me on the other, and her attention firmly locked on her screen. I noticed, sure, but never brought it up. Why stir trouble when everything else felt so right? December 22nd rolled around too quickly, and she was packing up to spend Christmas with her family abroad. She promised we'd stay in touch, FaceTime every day, and share in the holiday spirit, despite the miles. It sounded perfect, but the reality was different. Getting her on a call became a Herculean task, each attempt met with excuses about family outings or bad Wi-Fi. Concern crept in, whispering doubts I was quick to silence. We did manage to connect on Christmas Day, though, and for a while, it was like nothing had changed. We laughed, reminisced, and made plans for the future. Plans filled with hope and shared dreams. But as the call ended and I was left in the silence of my apartment, the joy of the moment faded, leaving me with an unease I couldn't quite shake off. Was I just being paranoid, or was the distance between us more than just physical now? The trust that had once been unshakable now seemed to have developed hairline cracks, invisible but ever present. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder if the distance had changed us more than I'd realized, or if, maybe, I was just afraid of what the future held for us. The air was frosty when she returned on December 27th, but the chill inside wasn't from the weather. It was her, distant like she'd brought back a piece of the foreign winter in her heart. She was glued to her phone, her fingers swiping with purpose, her eyes rarely meeting mine. Even as I tried to close the gap between us on the couch, she'd subtly shift away, her phone always in hand. It was like she was physically there, but miles away in spirit. Then came December 30th, a day that started like any other, but ended with my world turned upside down. We need to talk, she said, the weight of those words hanging heavy between us. She talked about feeling neglected, about mistrust that seemed to come out of nowhere. I was blindsided, scrambling to find words, to understand where all this was coming from. I just think it's best if we end things, she concluded, her voice steady, her decisions seemingly final. Desperation kicked in. We can work through this, I pleaded, my mind racing to offer solutions, changes, anything. I can be better, more attentive, whatever you need. But her resolve was a fortress, my words, mere whispers against its walls. She had made up her mind, leaving me grappling with a reality I wasn't ready to accept. However, a sliver of hope emerged when we decided to give it another go on our city break planned for January 2nd. It was like a ceasefire, a brief respite from the turmoil. Those days were a mix of the familiar and the tentative, moments of intimacy intertwining with bursts of laughter. It felt like navigating a minefield blindfolded, exhilarating yet terrifying, not knowing if the next step would bring us closer or set everything ablaze again. By January 6th, as I drove her to the airport, the goodbye was filled with promises of effort and making it work. Yet, the unease lingered, a silent passenger on the ride back home. Her words said one thing, but the hesitation in her voice, the fleeting looks, told a different story. It was like watching a replay of our happiest moments, only this time, the colors were muted, the sounds a little off. The drive home was a blur, my thoughts a jumbled mess. The silence of the apartment was a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. I replayed our conversations, searching for signs, for reasons why things felt so off. Was it me? Was it her? Was it the distance that had wedged itself between us, not just physically but emotionally? In that solitude, the realization hit hard. We were two people holding on to the ghost of what we used to be, scared to let go, yet hurting from holding on too tight. The promise to make it work was like a band-aid on a wound that needed stitches, temporary relief doomed to give way. I sank into the couch, her absence more palpable than ever. The room was filled with memories, with echoes of laughter and whispers of love, now overshadowed by the weight of unsaid words and unresolved feelings. The journey ahead was uncertain, a path shrouded in fog, with the only guarantee being that it wouldn't be easy. But as the night crept in, one thing was clear. This was a chapter of our lives closing, with the next page still unwritten, and the pen heavy in my hands. It was January 9th when my world got flipped, yet again. I think I've settled for less, she said, her words slicing through the air like a cold breeze. I need space, she added, as if the miles and oceans between us during her studies weren't space enough. There I was, tossed into the limbo of hopeful waiting, clinging to the thin thread of maybe, just maybe, things could turn around. Days turned into nights filled with restlessness. My mind, a relentless detective, couldn't shake off the gnawing suspicion. So, I turned to technology for answers. Find My iPhone became my ally. And there it was, her location pinging from the same, friends, house over and over. Space? More like specific coordinates to where our relationship's trust was being questioned. I confronted her, my voice laced with a mix of hope and dread. So, this friend's place. You're there a lot, huh? Her response was quick, too rehearsed. Yeah, just hanging out, you know. It's nothing. But the seed of doubt was planted, watered by her evasion and nurtured by her half-hearted reassurances. The pressure built in a volcano on the brink. I needed clarity, a solid ground to stand on. We can't keep doing this dance, I told her. You need to decide what you want. It was a plea, a last-ditch effort to salvage the love I thought we had. But her resolve was ironclad, her words final. I just need to be alone, she said, and with that, she cut me off from Find My iPhone, severing the last thread of our digital connection. Then, out of the blue, she shared her Uber location with me. The destination? The same house. A cruel twist of fate or a slip-up, it didn't matter. It was a breadcrumb trail leading to the truth I wasn't sure I wanted to find. I confronted her again, my frustration boiling over. You keep ending up at this place. You're telling me there's nothing going on? Her denial came as swiftly as before, a well-rehearsed script, devoid of guilt. I've told you, it's not like that, she insisted, but the conviction was missing, her words hollow. The realization hit me like a freight train. The person I loved, trusted, and waited for was now a stranger, her actions and words weaving a web of deceit I could no longer ignore. The fabric of our relationship, once woven with threads of love and trust, was now frayed, torn by lies and secrets. As I sat alone, the silence of the room amplifying the chaos in my mind, I understood that this was more than just about her needing space or finding herself. It was about respect, honesty, and the painful truth that sometimes love isn't enough to bridge the gap between two hearts drifting apart. The chapter of us, once vibrant and full of promise, was closing, leaving behind a trail of what ifs and memories fading into the backdrop of a love story that lost its way. The moment we blocked each other on all social media, it felt like plunging into an ice-cold ocean, the shock of it leaving me gasping for air. There I was, floating in a vortex of anxiety, doubt, and the kind of betrayal that eats at you from the inside out. The silence from her end was deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding in my mind. It was in one of those long, sleepless nights that I stumbled upon something that turned my world upside down. Spotify, of all things, became the unexpected witness to her infidelity. Their playlists, a digital tapestry of songs, each one a thread in the story of her betrayal. It was like discovering a secret language, one that spelled out my worst fears in melodies and lyrics. Driven by a cocktail of hurt and desperation, I dialed her number, my heart pounding against my chest. The phone rang, each tone a step deeper into the abyss. Then, a click. Hello. Her voice, once my comfort, now a sharp reminder of our fractured reality. Is it true? I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause, heavy and loaded, before she hung up, a brief but definitive confirmation of my suspicions. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from her, apologizing for being rude, as if manners were the crux of our problems. I couldn't hold back. Tell me the truth, I texted back, my fingers trembling over the screen. And she did. There's someone else, she admitted, her words like a final nail in the coffin of our relationship. She spoke of love for this new man, citing the attention he lavished on her, attention I supposedly failed to provide. I sat there, phone in hand, a numbness spreading through me. The depth of her deceit was breathtaking. All those times she'd asked for presents, for tokens of my affection, she'd been nurturing another relationship behind my back. It wasn't just the infidelity, it was the calculated manipulation of my feelings, keeping me as a safety net while she explored new possibilities. The realization was a crushing blow. I'd been a pawn in her game, my love and commitment exploited for her selfish needs. The weight of this truth was suffocating, pressing down on me until I felt I could no longer breathe. I was left to grapple with the shattered pieces of what I thought was a partnership built on trust and mutual respect. As I reflected on her actions, the scale of her betrayal unfolded before me. It wasn't an impulsive mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a series of calculated decisions made at the expense of my trust and emotional well-being. The person I had loved and trusted for years had become a stranger, her actions alien and cruel. In the aftermath, I found myself spiraling, each day a battle against the tide of emotions threatening to pull me under. The pain of her betrayal, the humiliation of being deceived, and the realization of my own naivety converged into a storm of despair. But amidst the wreckage, a painful clarity began to emerge. I understood that this wasn't just about her infidelity or the end of our relationship. It was a harsh lesson in self-respect and the importance of recognizing one's worth. The road to recovery would be long and fraught with challenges, but it was a journey I had to undertake, not for her, but for myself. As I faced the daunting task of rebuilding my life, I knew that the scars of her deceit would always be a part of me. Yet, in that moment of profound loss, I also found a glimmer of hope. Hope that, with time, I could learn to trust again, to love again, and most importantly, to forgive, not for her sake, but for my own. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, life throws you a curveball that knocks you off your feet. That was me. the guy who thought he had the perfect relationship, until the day I stumbled upon the undeniable proof of her betrayal. It was like a gut punch, the kind that leaves you gasping for air, questioning every moment, every memory. The discovery was just the beginning, the catalyst for a descent I hadn't seen coming. I found myself caught in a whirlwind of emotions, swinging wildly between wanting to fix what we had and burning everything to the ground in search of revenge. It was a toxic mix, one that began to eat away at the fabric of my daily life. Work became an afterthought, a place I showed up to but wasn't really present. Deadlines slipped by unnoticed, and projects that once ignited my passion felt like burdens. I was unraveling, thread by thread, and the worst part? I didn't even care. My family and friends, they noticed. How could they not? I was a shell of the man I used to be, hollowed out by anger and pain. They reached out, hands extended with words of comfort and offers of escape. But I pushed them away, too consumed by my own sense of betrayal to accept their help. I've got this, I'd say, a lie I told myself more than anyone else. As the days turned into weeks, I became a detective in my own twisted drama, piecing together the timeline of her infidelity. Social media, once a place of shared photos and happy memories, became my hunting ground. Every like, every comment, a potential clue. Mutual friends, once sources of joy, were now interrogated, their words sifted for hints of deceit. My obsession knew no bounds. I confronted him, the other man, in a showdown that was more about my shattered ego than seeking any real answers. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and for a moment, I teetered on the edge of violence, driven by a desire to reclaim some semblance of control. But this path, this need for vengeance, it led me down dark alleys I never intended to explore. Legal warnings soon followed, a stark reminder that my quest for justice was veering into dangerous territory. Privacy violations, they said, harassment claims, words that felt like handcuffs, restraining my every move. In a desperate bid for vindication, I turned to social media, airing our dirty laundry for the world to see. It was a mistake, a miscalculation driven by pain. Instead of rallying allies, I found myself more isolated, caught in the crossfire of divided loyalties. Friends I'd known for years chose sides, leaving me adrift in a sea of judgment and whispered conversations. Work, my once secure haven, became a battleground. My performance, hampered by sleepless nights and days spent in the grip of obsession, plummeted. Warnings turned into stern conversations, and eventually, the demotion came. It was a blow, not just to my career but to my identity, a confirmation of the failure I felt etched into every aspect of my life. I was lost, adrift in a storm of my own making, unable to see the shore. The man I once was, confident, driven, happy, seemed like a stranger, a distant memory overshadowed by the wreckage of the present. The pursuit of truth, of some semblance of justice, had cost me more than I ever imagined, leaving me to wonder if any of it was worth the price. In the thick of a storm you've whipped up yourself, there's a desperate kind of clarity that comes with knowing you've got nothing left to lose. That was me, gearing up for one last stand, a final showdown that I hoped would bring me some semblance of closure. I was gunning for remorse, maybe a sliver of guilt, or at the very least, an explanation that made sense of the chaos she'd left in her wake. We met in the very cafe where our story began, the irony of the setting not lost on me. There she was, the same, yet unrecognizably different, her indifference a stark contrast to the turmoil churning inside me. As I laid bare my pain, seeking some acknowledgement of the wreckage, her responses were cold, calculated. The finality in her voice, the way she spoke of her new life without a hint of regret, it was a clear message. I was a chapter firmly closed. The aftermath was brutal. My attempts at reaching out, at salvaging what dignity I had left, were met with legal threats, her words slicing through any hope of reconciliation. It was a wake-up call, a bitter realization that the battleground I was on was one where I stood utterly alone. Then came the wedding of a mutual friend, an event that should have been a celebration but instead felt like walking into the lion's den. There they were, the perfect couple, while whispers of my downfall circulated like fine wine. My presence was a reminder of a scandal, my every move watched, analyzed, and judged. It was in that moment, surrounded by faces I once considered friends, that I truly understood the depth of my isolation. In the months that followed, I tried to move on, to find solace in new beginnings. But each attempt was a glaring reminder of the past, my unresolved feelings acting as a barrier I couldn't breach. The shadow of public outbursts and whispered accusations followed me, a stigma I couldn't shake. The final nail in the coffin was a letter from her, an impersonal epitaph to what we once had. Her words were sharp, a clinical dissection of our relationship, each sentence reinforcing her decision as one made in pursuit of her happiness. It was a cold, calculated goodbye, one that left no room for doubt or hope. I was left reeling, a ship adrift in a sea of my own making. The realization that I had lost not just the woman I loved, but everything that defined me was crushing. My dignity, my friends, even my sense of purpose, all casualties of a war I'd waged on myself. Professionally, I was a ghost, my once promising career a casualty of my inability to separate personal turmoil from my work. The day I lost my job was just another chapter in the tragic saga I'd authored, a tangible reminder of how far I'd fallen. Sitting amidst the ruins of what my life had become, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had led me here. It was a stark landscape, one where every choice, every action had contributed to my undoing. The pursuit of closure, of understanding, had cost me everything, leaving me to navigate the wreckage of a life I scarcely recognize. In the aftermath of heartbreak and betrayal, I found myself adrift in a sea of confusion and sorrow. The life I knew, the love I cherished, was gone, leaving behind a void that seemed impossible to fill. It was during these darkest hours that I stumbled upon an online forum, a haven for souls shattered by deceit. Reading through the stories of others, I felt a kinship in our shared pain, a flicker of hope in the solidarity of our experiences. Compelled by this newfound community, I took the brave step of seeking therapy. Sitting in that small, dimly lit room, I poured out my heart to a stranger. It was a daunting task, unraveling the layers of trust, betrayal, and the raw wounds of my public breakdown. Yet, with each session, I felt a weight lifting, a clarity emerging from the fog of my despair. It was during this period of self-reflection and healing that fate threw a curveball my way, a chance encounter with a woman who sparked something in me I thought was lost forever. Her laughter, her empathy, it offered a glimpse of what could be. But the specter of my past loomed large, the scars of betrayal too fresh, sabotaging what little hope we might have had for something more. The realization that I needed a fresh start was sudden but undeniable. I decided to move to a new city, to leave behind the ghosts of my past relationship and the failures that haunted me. Packing up my life was a bittersweet journey through memory lane, each photo, each memento a reminder of better times, tinged with regret and what-ifs. Arriving in my new city, I was met with the harsh reality that escaping my past was not as simple as changing my address. Despite the physical distance, the reach of social media and the whispers of mutual connections ensured that my reputation had followed me. The shadow of my former life cast a long, dark silhouette over my attempts to start anew. The offer of a new job provided a much-needed distraction, a chance to rebuild my professional life and, perhaps, my sense of self. Yet, connecting with my new colleagues proved challenging. The fear of repeating past mistakes, of opening up only to be hurt again, kept me at arm's length, trapped in a self-imposed exile. In search of an outlet, a way to process my journey and perhaps help others navigating their own paths through heartbreak, I started a blog. Writing anonymously, I shared my story, my mistakes, my lessons learned. The act of putting words to my pain, to my growth, became a therapeutic endeavor, a way to make sense of the chaos that had once threatened to consume me. Now, as I stand looking out over the skyline of my new city, I'm struck by the duality of my circumstances. Yes, I've managed to put physical distance between myself and the reminders of my past, but the emotional scars remain, a testament to the cost of love and betrayal. It's a sobering realization, one that comes with its own form of peace. For in acknowledging the scars, in accepting the pain and the lessons it has taught me, I find myself ready to face whatever comes next, armed with a deeper understanding of myself and a cautious hope for the future. The journey has been long, fraught with setbacks and moments of despair, but also marked by growth and unexpected moments of grace. As the sun sets on this chapter of my life, I'm reminded that while the past may shape us, it does not define us. The true measure of our strength lies in our ability to rise from the ashes of our darkest days, to forge ahead with resilience, and to open our hearts once more, despite knowing the risks. This is the true cost of love and betrayal, but also the undeniable value of hope and redemption. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please give this video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on our latest stories. Until next time, welcome back to the channel, where we delve into the most shocking and heart-wrenching stories from the depths of Reddit. I'm your host, and today, we have a story that will leave you questioning trust and the sanctity of marriage. Imagine thinking you have the perfect family, only to uncover a betrayal so deep it shatters your world. Our story today is titled, "I hired a private investigator to follow my wife. What he found out destroyed me." It's a tale of love, suspicion, and the devastating truths that sometimes hide behind closed doors. Stay tuned as we unravel this emotional roller coaster. And remember, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. My wife and I celebrated our 6th wedding anniversary recently, and together we are blessed with 2 wonderful boys. These amazing kids are from my wife's previous relationship, and over the years we have built a strong bond as a family. Our weekends are filled with joy as we embark on various adventures with the boys, such as going to the movies and enjoying dinners together. Being their stepfather has brought me immense happiness, and we always find ways to have a fantastic time as a loving and harmonious family. Around a year ago, our relationship hit a rough patch when my wife went out for a girls' night out with her friends. Upon her return, I could sense that something was amiss. Concerned, I asked her what was bothering her, but she brushed it off, attributing her mood to tiredness from the previous night's outing. Despite my intuition suggesting otherwise, I respected her space and chose not to press further at that moment. Accepting her explanation about being tired, I decided not to pursue the matter further. However, over the next few days, I couldn't help but notice that she was spending an unusual amount of time on her phone, even during dinner. Concerned, I gently inquired why she was texting so frequently. She revealed that she was actively engaged in a group chat with her girlfriends, discussing the recent girls' night out they had and planning another one. Though her response seemed innocent enough, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something more might be going on. At the time, I didn't pay much attention to her frequent texting with her girlfriends, as it wasn't an unusual behavior. In hindsight, I now understand that she might have been coordinating something with them that she preferred to keep private from me. Given her demanding job as a consultant for a large firm, I didn't mind her occasional nights out with friends as a means to de-stress and unwind. It seemed like a natural way for her to relax, and I trusted her judgment in maintaining a healthy work-life balance. Presently, my wife is excitedly discussing another upcoming girls' night out, marking the second one in less than 3 weeks. While I understand the need for her to unwind and enjoy time with her friends, there's a lingering concern. Among the group she hangs out with, 4 of them are single, making her the only married member. This situation worries me because she seems to be the one with the most to lose in comparison to her single friends. The other women in her circle are single, leading me to feel uneasy about the potential risks involved. I want to maintain a healthy level of trust and respect in our relationship, and I don't wish to be controlling or overly restrictive. The second girls' night out came and went, and afterward, I gently expressed my concerns to her. I emphasized the importance of being cautious and ensuring that her single friends wouldn't inadvertently influence her choices regarding our marriage. Open communication and understanding are crucial, and I want to support her while also safeguarding the commitment we share. Her reaction to my concerns was a puzzled look, but she remained silent. In search of guidance, I decided to drop by my parents' house after work. I shared my frustration with my wife's frequent girls' night out gatherings and discussed my worries with my mom. I explained that all the women she hangs out with are single, and it concerns me because they don't have the same commitments or responsibilities to consider as my wife does. My mom listened to my concerns and responded by saying, "I don't see anything wrong with the girls' night out in general, but I do understand your worry about her being the only married woman among a group of single friends." My dad added his perspective, saying, "If I were in your shoes, I would assert myself and let her know that this should be limited." Both of my parents highlighted the importance of addressing the situation openly and honestly with my wife while respecting her need for social outings. They advised me to communicate my feelings and boundaries effectively to ensure we find a solution that works for both of us. He further emphasized that her continuous partying without you is a significant issue of concern. Then my mom intervened once more, explaining that she had only participated in 3 girls' night out events in the entire 40 years of their marriage. She emphasized that all her girlfriends were married too, and they always made sure to be back home by 11 p.m. After contemplating their words on my way back home, I came to the conclusion that they were right. It was crucial to address this matter promptly before it escalated. Upon reaching home, I discussed the issue with my wife, but she became upset, accusing me of being controlling and lacking trust in her. I attempted to clarify that my intentions were not about controlling her. Rather, my concern was rooted in love and wanting her safety. Despite my efforts to explain, she refused to listen and went to bed upset. The following day, she left for her girls' night out without even returning home after work. To my surprise, this was already the third such event, and I hadn't even been aware of it. My wife arrived home well past 2 in the morning, but I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I waited silently, pretending to be asleep when she entered the bedroom. As I lay there, I realized that I needed to understand what was driving her to prioritize her outings with friends over spending time with her family. I resolved to have a sincere conversation with her to address the situation and find out why she was inclined to leave her family and go party with her girlfriends before heading to work. The following day, I reached out to a friend of mine and inquired if he still had the contact details of the private investigator he had hired for his company previously. To provide some context, my friend had enlisted the services of the investigator when one of his employees attempted to claim workman's compensation for an on-the-job accident. After the accident, the employee started complaining that he couldn't come to work, prompting my friend to take quick action and hire a private investigator. As it turned out, the employee's injury claims were completely false. The investigator discovered that he had been playing golf and participating in a flag football league during the supposed recovery period. Naturally, with this evidence, the employee had no choice but to withdraw his workman's claim. After receiving the contact number of the private investigator my friend had previously hired, he asked if everything was all right. In response, I expressed my uncertainty and shared my suspicions about my wife's recent behavior. I mentioned that she had been frequently attending these girls' night out parties, and I had concerns that she might be engaged in activities she shouldn't be. My friend inquired about the reasons behind my suspicion of my wife's fidelity. I proceeded to explain that my concerns arose from 3 recent incidents when she went out and returned home after midnight, smelling of alcohol. Moreover, when I confronted her about it, she reacted with anger and defensiveness, which added to my worries. In response, my friend remarked, "Well, it seems like you have valid reasons for concern." Following that conversation, I took action and called the private investigator, arranging a meeting with him after work. During the meeting, the investigator asked me about my requirements, and I requested that he keep an eye on my wife during her girls' night out events to find out what she was up to. Upon meeting the private investigator, he informed me of his hourly fee, which was $100. Without any concern for the cost, I was determined to discover the truth about my wife's activities. I provided the investigator with a photograph of my wife, along with details about her car, workplace, and work hours. He assured me that he would commence the surveillance the following day. During those 3 days, I anxiously waited for the private investigator's call, eager to find out what my wife was up to. Finally, he contacted me and arranged a meeting after my work hours. When we met, he presented me with some footage to reveal what he had discovered. The footage showed my wife leaving her workplace wearing different clothes than what she had worn when she left for work that day. It became evident that she had changed her attire while at work. The private investigator tracked my wife's movements and found her heading to a bar. Upon entering, he observed her joining a group of women who turned out to be her girlfriends. They spent around 2 hours at the bar before leaving together. The investigator continued to follow them to a nearby house, approximately 15 minutes away from the bar. At the house, he noticed a man answering the door, and my wife and her friends went inside with him. Clad in black attire, the private investigator explained that it aids him in conducting discreet nighttime surveillance. He approached a window from a slight distance and peered inside, witnessing a scene that confirmed my fears. Inside, he observed the girls dancing closely with a few guys, and unfortunately, my wife was among them. She was in a corner with a man who was behaving inappropriately, squeezing her bikes, while they engaged in a passionate kiss. Upon witnessing the distressing evidence, the private investigator looked at me and stated, "I believe you now have sufficient evidence to take the necessary actions." He handed me a flash drive containing the footage and mentioned that he would retain a copy as a precautionary measure. After the meeting, I returned home, feeling overwhelmed with emotion, and tears streamed down my face. It was difficult to come to terms with the fact that my wife, whom I had been married to for 9 years, had cheated on me and continued to do so. Feeling torn about confronting her directly with the footage, I decided not to show it to her just yet. The following day, I got up early and left for work without uttering a word to my wife. As I was on my way to work, she sent me a text, questioning why I hadn't spoken to her before leaving. Despite receiving her message, I chose not to respond at that moment. Upon arriving at work, I immediately made calls to several divorce lawyers, seeking advice on how to navigate the situation and safeguard my interests. Simultaneously, I began searching for a place to stay, as I knew I couldn't continue living in the same house with my wife. The thought of leaving our home was difficult, especially because of my feelings for our boys, but I felt it was the necessary step considering my wife's actions. I felt an overwhelming sense of devastation as my entire world seemed to have been thrown into chaos. I was at a loss for how to make things right again. Divorce appeared to be the only viable solution. There seemed to be no point in attempting to mend our broken marriage. It was evident that she desired the freedom of the single life, and I decided to let her have it. However, I had to approach this situation strategically, ensuring that our boys wouldn't be left alone while their mother enjoyed her girls' night out. Residing in Massachusetts, I knew that divorce in this state was considered a no-fault process, which should make the legal aspect relatively straightforward. However, that evening, when I arrived home, my wife and boys were already there. As I entered, my wife greeted me, asking about my day, while the boys happily said, "Hey, Dad." The moment was emotionally overwhelming, and I fought back tears, trying to keep myself composed. As the hours passed, everyone began to wind down for the night. After putting the boys to bed, my wife came downstairs and invited me to watch a movie together, but I declined, saying that I wasn't up for it. She accepted my response and said, "Okay, I'm going to bed." Later, once she had settled into bed, I used that time to gather my belongings and prepare to leave. I waited until she had fallen asleep before quietly departing from the house, having nowhere else to go. I sought refuge at my parents' house, even though it was quite late. My dad was genuinely concerned about my well-being and asked if I was okay. Wanting to share the truth with him, I sat down with him at the dining room table. With a heavy heart, I opened up the footage that my private investigator had compiled and showed my dad the evidence. He couldn't believe what he saw, and his disbelief mirrored the pain and shock I had been feeling. As my mom joined us downstairs, I decided to show her the evidence as well. The revelation left both my parents speechless, unable to comprehend the betrayal. I mustered the courage to tell them that I had made up my mind to move out and file for divorce. While they seemed disappointed, they didn't attempt to dissuade me. After all, it was clear that my decision was based on my wife's infidelity, and I had reached the point of no return. That night, I stayed at my parents' house, seeking solace in their support during this difficult time. The following morning, I woke up and decided to send a text to my boss, explaining that I would be coming in late due to personal reasons. My boss was understanding and didn't have any issues with my situation. While dealing with my work matters, I noticed an overwhelming number of text messages from my wife, filled with concern about my whereabouts and why I had left the previous night. Despite the flood of messages, I chose not to respond to any of them, still grappling with my emotions and needing some space to process everything that had happened. Taking decisive action, I sought out a divorce attorney and initiated the legal process based on the grounds of adultery. Simultaneously, I made the difficult decision to move out of the house. When I knew my wife wouldn't be home, I returned to the house to leave her a note. In the note, I explained that I had filed for divorce, providing her with the necessary information, and informed her that she could reach me at my parents' house if she needed anything during this tumultuous time. When my workday was over, I headed to my parents' house and noticed my wife's car parked in the driveway. Entering the house, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, tears streaming down her face. She asked me the reason behind filing for divorce, and I mustered the courage to show her the footage on my phone. As I played the evidence, I calmly explained that I didn't deserve to be treated this way and that the trust between us had been shattered by her actions. After a lengthy and heartfelt conversation, we both came to the mutual understanding that divorce was the best course of action for us. I expressed that I didn't have any desire to keep the house, considering it was a rental property, so I suggested that she could have it since she could afford the rent on her own. The divorce hearing proceeded amicably, and the judge granted me a 30-day period to collect the rest of my belongings from the house. I chose not to seek alimony from her as I earned more income, and child support wasn't necessary since the children were already receiving it from their biological father. Our ages were the same, both 33, and the boys were 7 and 8 years old. It was truly heartbreaking because I had developed a deep love for those boys, treating them as if they were my own, even though I knew I wasn't their biological father. When my job presented me with an opportunity out of state, I made the decision to accept it. As part of starting a new chapter in my life, I changed my phone number, only sharing it with my parents and a select few friends. Embarking on this fresh journey, I have managed to build a new life for myself. Almost a year has passed, and I am thriving. I've embraced dating again, and emotionally, I find myself in a much better place. The decision to move and begin anew has proven to be a positive and transformative experience. My friends have informed me that my ex-wife has been inquiring about me and even attempted to reach out through social media, but I have no interest in reconnecting with her or revisiting the past. I am content with the choice I made to move forward with my life, and I encourage anyone facing a similar situation to do the same. While I still have moments of difficulty, I am learning to cope with it one day at a time. Embracing each day as it comes has been my way of handling the struggles that arise from time to time. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what you think about the story. Thank you for sticking with us through this intense and emotional story. If you found it as compelling as we did, make sure to leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when we release a new video. Until next time, take care and remember, trust is fragile. Welcome back to the channel, where we uncover the most jaw-dropping and intense stories from the depths of Reddit. I'm your host, and today, we have a tale that will make you rethink the very nature of trust, friendship, and the devastating consequences of betrayal. Imagine being caught in a web of lies and deceit, where one impulsive decision shatters lives and turns your world into a battlefield. Our story today is titled, "My Best Friend's Wife Seduced Me, and Now I'm Paying the Price, How One Kiss Destroyed Everything." It's a story of forbidden passion, devastating betrayal, and the harrowing fallout of one man's choices. Stay tuned as we unravel this gripping saga. And remember, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story. You think cheaters always get away with it? Think again. I had this buddy, Mark, solid guy. Thought his wife was the same. Turns out, secrets ain't just for keeping. They're like time bombs waiting to blow your whole life sky high. You see, I fell for Mark's wife, Sarah. Yeah, I know, I'm the worst. One stolen kiss, and it was a race to see how far we could fall. The lies got bigger, the sneaking around got riskier. We were playing with fire, man, and let me tell you, we got burned. This ain't your average heartbreak story. This is about how one stupid decision wrecked families, shattered friendships, and turned my entire world into a damn war zone. You ready for this? It gets messy. The whole, your wife fancies you, thing was a punch in the gut. I mean, come on, Mark, your best mate. Is this some kind of weird test? I tossed and turned that night, her face, Sarah's face, flashing through my mind. The next morning, I felt like I'd been run over. Should I tell my wife? Nah, that'd open a whole other can of worms. Best to just forget the whole damn thing. A couple of days pass, and I'm starting to think I imagined the whole conversation. But then there's a Facebook message waiting for me. It's her, Sarah. My stomach flips. Turns out, Mark wasn't messing around. Her messages are playful, flirty, bold. It's like she's the cat, and I'm some poor mouse she's got cornered. I try to resist, but there's no denying it. The spark is lit. Soon, a couple of messages turns into late-night chats, the kind I haven't had since I was a lovesick teenager. I know this is dangerous territory, but the thrill of the forbidden, it's intoxicating. One Tuesday, I end up working late. Instead, I find myself at Mark and Sarah's place. He's out of town for the night. It's meant to be just a quick visit, the excuse about catching up with both of them. But as Sarah talks, her eyes glinting with that knowing spark, all my willpower crumbles. Before I know it, we're in a desperate clinch, the world outside shrinking away. That's when it starts. The sneaking around, the stolen moments, the constant lies. Every time I look at Mark, the guilt eats away at me. Am I really low enough to betray my oldest friend this way? But Sarah, she somehow wormed her way into my head. The rush of it all masks the sinking feeling that this is a runaway train, and I'm tied to the tracks. I never realized grocery shopping could be so damn exhilarating. There I was, standing in the cereal aisle beside Sarah, our carts almost touching. Suddenly, finding the right kind of granola felt like a life or death situation. We're pretending this is some random run-in, but there's zero chance anyone would buy that. After the grocery store, there's the coffee shop detour. We sit at a corner table, knees brushing, the hum of the cafe fading into the background as she throws me a mischievous grin. The air between us is charged, and I'm desperately trying to play it cool while my insides are on fire. With her leaning in, all I can think about is Mark's trusting face and how easily I'm destroying it with every innocent-looking latte. The lies come easier than I ever thought they would. Oh, meeting ran late. Traffic was hell. Yeah, had to pull an extra shift. My wife doesn't doubt me, but I see a flicker of concern in her eyes. She senses something's off, but she can't pinpoint the exact reason. It's only a matter of time before suspicion cracks through. My phone has basically become a ticking time bomb. I've switched Sarah's name to something boring, set the ringtone to silent, and I jump at the slightest vibration. Each text from her requires a calculated response, not too eager, not too dismissive. It's all a carefully crafted illusion, and I'm the architect of my own deception. When Mark calls, my heart sinks. His voice is cheerful, oblivious to that I'm sweating bullets. He talks about weekend plans, a double date, and I have to force myself to sound enthusiastic. The irony is suffocating. Later, Sarah texts something fiery, and all I can picture is Mark laughing, completely clueless to the betrayal I'm orchestrating behind his back. Maybe I'm a terrible person, because despite the guilt, the thrill of the chase still hasn't worn off. It's a sick game, and I'm already in way too deep. Sarah's apartment smells like jasmine and some other scent I can't place. Sin, maybe. That's the thing about this whole twisted mess. It's poisoned every part of me. I can't think straight, sleep straight. I'm a malfunctioning robot pretending to be a normal husband and dad. Every time I sneak out to see her, it's like playing Russian roulette. Checking over my shoulder in parking lots, glancing at my reflection in windows, praying I don't see someone I know. Paranoia's got its claws in me, whispering that at any second, the bottom's going to drop out. But then I'm with her and the fear recedes. Her touch sends shockwaves through me, her laughter makes my pulse race. We're building our own little world, one stolen hour at a time. Except, I know it's a flimsy house of cards. It's perched on lies, and the slightest breeze could tear it all apart. My old phone sits on a dusty shelf. That's my real life phone calls from my kids, messages from work. My secret phone buzzes, and my heart leaps. It's Sarah, and every text is another nail in the coffin of my sanity. We get sloppy, lingering too long outside her building, letting a kiss stretch out in the driveway. Each reckless move ups the ante. Screw Mark, Sarah hisses, her fingers tangled in my hair. This is real. He doesn't deserve you. And for a dangerous second, I almost believe her. The night everything changes starts just like the others. I lie to my wife, some half-baked excuse about a project, and then I'm racing to Sarah. But there's a strange twist in my gut of feeling I can't shake. It's not guilt, not fear. It's a sense of inevitability, like the trap has finally been sprung, and I'm the oblivious rat walking straight into it. My hands won't stop shaking. I'm parked outside this dingy motel, Sarah asleep beside me, and all I can think about is blowing up our sorry little escape. I should march straight home, tell my wife everything, maybe even show her the string of filthy texts, beg for forgiveness, or at least punishment. Anything would be better than this limbo. But as the sun starts to rise, painting the motel room in a sickly pink, Sarah stirs. Her eyes lock with mine, heavy with sleep and a familiar hunger. Just like that, the resolve slips away, replaced with a sickening wave of desire and self-loathing. I'm hooked. Addicted to this twisted game, even though I know the only possible ending is devastation. Back home, the lies keep piling up. My wife gives me a concerned look, asks if I'm okay, and I deflect, muttering something about stress. Inside, I'm dying 1,000 deaths. Every time the phone rings, I practically leap out of my skin. What if it's Mark? Has he figured it out? Is some stranger calling my house with a blackmail scheme? It's amazing how quickly your mind can invent fresh new terrors when you're this deep in deceit. At dinner, I force myself to swallow down the bland chicken, all the while imagining the scene with Mark that's inevitable. Him standing there, broken-hearted and furious. He won't hit me, that's not his style. He'll just look at me with absolute contempt, the kind that burns worse than any punch ever could. That night, I dream of courtroom trials, of my children's tear-streaked faces. I wake up drenched in sweat, gasping for air. My life is a horror movie, and I'm the architect of my own destruction. Sarah calls. It's code now, business jargon, fake names about clients. But I can barely focus on her words. All I hear is that ticking clock in my head, counting down to the moment the bomb goes off. And the really messed up part? I'm not even sure I want to stop it. I don't recognize myself anymore. I see him in the mirror, this pale, haunted stranger, and I hate what he's become. But cutting ties with Sarah? It's not something I can even fathom. She's sunk her claws into me too deep. Every meeting makes her bolder. No more hushed whispers in dim corners. Now it's hand-holding across restaurant tables, the brazen way she slides into the passenger seat of my car. We're daring fate to strike us down, and part of me knows it's a matter of when, not if. The day it almost unravels is seared into my brain. We're at the supermarket, a risky move, but she insisted. As we turn down the coffee aisle, a familiar voice jolts me. It's Linda, my neighbor, chatting away. If she turns that corner, I yank Sarah away, my face burning. Let's go, I forgot something. Her eyes narrow in suspicion, but she follows, for now. My heart's pounding like it's going to burst from my chest for the rest of the day. If Linda saw even a glimpse, the rumors will spread like wildfire. Mark's misery ramps up a notch. He drops by my office, unloads about Sarah's moods, their fights. I sit there, the picture of concerned sympathy, while my soul squirms. It's torture I bring on myself. He needs a friend and confides in the man who's tearing his world apart. Sarah's not making this easier. There's a new possessiveness in her, a neediness that makes me uneasy. She calls too much, wants to know my every move. When I push back, a flash of something ugly crosses her face. You think I'd let you walk away? After everything? It was meant to sound playful, but my blood runs cold. Suddenly, it's not just about the affair, it's about her. What depths is she capable of? What will she do if I try to end this? My lies fall apart faster than I can spin them. Excuses for work crumble, my stories get jumbled. My wife's patience is wearing thin, her eyes searching mine for answers. It's like a car crash in slow motion, and there's nothing I can do to swerve out of the way. I just have to wait for the inevitable impact. The text was an accident. A stupid, drunken fumble late one night, meant for Sarah and somehow hitting Mark's number. Words I shouldn't even think, let alone type out, beamed straight to my best friend's phone. It took seconds to realize my mistake, but the damage was done. The next morning, I wake up to a voicemail from Mark. His voice is low, a dangerous calm. We need to talk, come over now, my stomach lurches. If he read that text, my entire world is about to implode. Frantically, I come up with idiotic excuses for my wife urgent work crisis, surprise call. She sees right through my lies. Her eyes, once filled with concern, are now hard with suspicion. On the drive over to Mark's, all I can think is this might be the last time I see them, my family, before everything falls apart. Sarah's not answering her phone. Useless. I need to control the damage, but my mind is a jumbled mess. Mark greets me at the door. No handshake, no forced smile. Just that grim set to his jaw. He ushers me into the living room, the same room where we've had countless beers, watched countless games. It feels foreign now. Cut the crap, he spits. What the hell's going on with you and Sarah? He holds up his phone, screen flashing that damning text. My lies crumple like wet paper. All I can manage is pathetic apologies, weak denials. He doesn't buy it. Fury explodes in his eyes, the kind of rage that makes him unrecognizable. He's ready to throw me out, maybe beat me down. Instead, he drops a chilling line. Get out. Think about how you're going to tell your wife. The drive home is a blur. I make it inside somehow, legs leaden. I can't look my wife in the eye. Guilt and shame choke me. The coward's way out is to run, disappear. But some shred of decency keeps me rooted in place. The next few days are a living hell. Sarah's furious, hissing accusations, alternating with desperate pleas for me not to leave her. My phone lighting up with unknown numbers and hang-ups makes me jumpy. Has Mark told everyone? Are strangers about to expose me? Then it comes. The email to Mark's work inbox. A single blurry photo me and Sarah locked in a kiss. No sender name, no message, just the damning proof of my betrayal. All my careful lies, my pathetic attempts at control, are useless now. The bomb has gone off, and the fallout is going to be devastating. The silence in the aftermath of Mark's fury is worse than any shouting. He doesn't even look at me, just moves like a machine packing Sarah's stuff. Her tears and pathetic attempts to defend herself fall on deaf ears. Mark's a man transformed, the good-hearted buddy replaced by this cold, merciless stranger. They're gone with a slam of the door. It echoes through my house, my soul. Mark's last words ring in my ears, the most dangerous kind. He's right, I was the snake in the grass, the one nobody saw coming. Facing my wife is the next circle of hell. How do you even start that conversation? Every time I open my mouth, pathetic excuses die on my lips. She sees through me. Finally, I choke the truth out. It spills forth, ugly and vile. The sneaking around, the lies, the photo that blew it all apart. She doesn't explode, doesn't throw things. Instead, a chilling calm settles over her. Her voice is low, words carefully chosen. You disgust me, get out of my sight. It's not a request, it's an order. And for the first time in this whole mess, I obey without question. The kids are confused, They saw the yelling with Mark, sense something horrible is happening. I want to comfort them, explain, but there is no explanation, no fixing this. I pack a pathetic bag and leave, the coward fleeing his own wreckage. Motel rooms become my new home. The news is alight with the gossip. Apparently, Mark made no secret of it. I'm the town's new villain, Sarah the scheming seductress. My face might as well be plastered on a most wanted poster. Work calls, relentless at first, turn to an ominous silence. No severance, no polite email. Just termination, the professional word for a death sentence. Sarah tries to reach out, a mix of fury and some warped version of needing me. But I ignore her. There's nothing to salvage from what we had. I'm drowning, and she's just another weight pulling me down. Sleep offers no escape. Nightmares of Mark's face twisted with hatred, my wife's tear-streaked face, my kids backing away from me in fear. It's torture my guilty mind orchestrates. I bolt awake, drenched in sweat, gasping for breath. Some nights, the only way to numb the pain is to drink myself into a stupor. It doesn't bring oblivion, just makes it all worse. The world keeps spinning, heedless of my spectacular fall from grace. I'm the ghost now, haunting dingy motels, peering from behind drawn curtains at a world that wants nothing to do with me. Shame is a relentless stalker, my constant shadow. My parents find out, it's my sister who calls, voice tight with barely concealed contempt. My dad is a man of few words, but I hear the disappointment crushing down on him through the phone line. My mom, she just weeps. It's a sound that'll haunt me forever. Word gets back to me about my family. My kids refuse to visit, barely speak to me on the phone. My wife's hired a fire-breathing lawyer. Divorce proceedings are a freight train barreling towards me. It's all deserved. Nothing softens the blow. No excuses I can tell myself anymore. Then, the physical symptoms start. Chest pains in the middle of the night send me to a grimy ER, convinced I'm having a heart attack. Turns out it's panic attacks, my body short-circuiting under the weight of guilt. The doctor scribbles a prescription, Xanax, my new crutch, to numb the constant anxiety eating me alive. Sarah's not faring any better. Word is, she's crashing at a friend's place. Mark's kicked her to the curb too. She calls sometimes, ranting, threatening, sometimes just sobbing. I want to cut her off entirely, but a twisted, pathetic part of me still clings to some warped sense of connection. We're the only ones who understand this particular kind of hell. One rainy afternoon, I see Mark. It's in the grocery store, of all places. He's gaunt, eyes shadowed, but the hatred blazing in them is as bright as ever. I try to mumble an apology, but he just turns away, disgust written on his back. We used to buy beer in this aisle, joke about football. Now we're just strangers who despise each other to the very core. Back at the motel, a letter slides under the door. No stamp, just my name scrawled on it. It's from my wife. One page, words like knives. She's not talking about reconciliation, it's about obliteration. My life as I knew it doesn't just have cracks, it's been atomized. Waking up is the worst part. It's those first few seconds when reality hasn't sucker punched me yet, and then my brain catches up. The cheap motel mattress, the stale smell of booze and desperation, the crushing weight of knowing I've thrown away everything that mattered. Days bleed into each other. I drink to numb the pain, and then drink to numb the hangover. It's a vicious cycle that's dragging me under. I barely even leave the room, the outside world a terrifying stage full of accusing glares and whispered judgments. One bleary night, I decide to walk outside. Just a few blocks, maybe get some pathetic fast food to soak up the booze. It's on that grimy street corner that I see Sarah. She's thinner, a ghost of the woman who once lured me in. We stare at each other, united by our shared ruin. For a moment, the anger flares again, the urge to blame her. But looking at her, I just feel a bone-deep weariness. What's the point in more recriminations? We both played our part in this mess, both architects of our own downfall. We talk, a strained conversation on a dirty sidewalk, and then part ways without a backward glance. That night, I hit my absolute low. The Xanax and whiskey mix into a dangerous cocktail, and I wake up in a hospital bed. Overdose. Not some noble attempt at escape, just carelessness born from despair. The look in the overworked nurse's eyes mixes pity with a hint of disgust. It's the nudge I desperately need. A therapist is recommended. Some low-cost clinic, more out of pity than anything else. I hated at first. Poking around in the wreckage of my past, the screwed-up reasons why I craved the rush of the affair. It's slow, agonizing work. There are no easy answers, no instant forgiveness. Word trickles back that Mark's found someone new. Surprisingly, it doesn't stir jealousy, just a dull ache in my chest. He deserves happiness. Me? Well, that's a much harder question. A letter arrives, Mark's handwriting again. In it, he details all the practical things. Selling the house, the financial devastation I've caused him. His anger is cold, clinical, and it cuts deeper than any shouting ever could. So, here I am, broken, alone, trying to piece together some kind of existence out of the ashes of my old life. Am I on the path to redemption? Hell if I know. Some days, just getting out of bed feels like a victory. Other days, the darkness still calls, and I'm not sure I have the strength to fight it off forever. Turns out, rock bottom has a basement level 1 hadn't even considered. The court finalizes my divorce. The words on the official papers are dry, devoid of emotion, yet they cut like shards of glass. A retrievable breakdown of the marriage. I become a walking, talking cliché, a cautionary tale. I lose track of how long I've been living in that crappy motel. Weeks, months, it all blurs together. One morning, driven by desperation or maybe some flicker of self-preservation, I force myself out. Sunlight hurts my eyes, and the simple act of walking to the bus stop feels like climbing Everest. A faded poster catches my eye. Soup kitchen, volunteers needed. It's a pathetically small thing to do, but I need something beyond wallowing in guilt and cheap booze. Turns out, handing out warm meals to homeless folks is humbling in a way I never expected. Their struggles dwarf my own, yet some of them smile, genuinely smile, at me. It's like a tiny crack in the wall of misery I've built around myself. Therapy is still a slog. Talking about myself makes my skin crawl, but some days I make breakthroughs. Turns out, my dad was distant when I was a kid, and my mom, well, she put me on a pedestal that no person could ever live up to. It's not an excuse, but it's a start. Word gets back to me that my kids miss me. At least, that's what my sister tells me with a wary look. It's the first shred of hope I've felt in ages. I write letters, long, handwritten apologies that I don't even expect them to read, at least not at first. But it's a start. My parents tentatively offer a lifeline. I can move back home for a while, get a job, get back on my feet. Pride makes me hesitate, but desperation wins. Sleeping on their fold-out couch is a hell of a lot better than those motel mattresses. Turns out, Mark and Sarah are still a toxic disaster. She's apparently moved back in with him. Their fight's the talk of the town. People look at me with a strange mix of pity and revulsion as the details filter through the grapevine. I deserve every bit of it. Then there's Emily. We meet at the soup kitchen, both painfully aware we don't belong on this side of the serving table. She's got haunted eyes, the kind that have seen too much. Turns out, her husband ran off with her best friend. We share a dark understanding, an unspoken bond in the pain we've both endured and inflicted. She doesn't judge me, and in return, I just listen. The path to fixing my life seems longer than I ever imagined. Some days I take baby steps forward, others I stumble back. But at least now I'm walking. I'll never be who I once was. Maybe redemption is too much to hope for. But for the first time in forever, the future doesn't seem like a gaping, empty void. It's just unknown. And for now, that's enough. Thank you for sticking with us through this intense and emotional story. If you found it as compelling as we did, make sure to leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when we release a new video. Until next time, take care and remember, trust is fragile,